Welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show. I'm your host, Victor Nunley, and I am the Comic Hero. William Moulton Marston, the creator of Wonder Woman, also created the lie detector test. Is that statement true or false? I'll reveal the answer at the end of the show, but for right now, let the ranting begin.
What you talking about, Willis?
Alright, the first thing I want to talk about is all this garbage going on with the NBA and soon-to-be former Clippers owner Donald Sterling. As you all know, in April, Donald Sterling ended up saying some very racist things, and it was on tape, and it ended up being leaked out for just about me and everyone else in the world to hear. Well, of course, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver wasted no time on taking action. The first thing he did was he suspended him for one playoff game and then fined him and then handed out a hefty fine. And then he had said that Sterling was banned from the NBA for life. To me, that was the right thing to do. Because let me tell you something, racism has no place anywhere, much less professional sports. And one thing about it, a lot of folks think that you have to be a certain race that only certain race had to be racist. No, racism can come from anyone of any nationality. I mean, it's sad, but it's true. Well, instead of taking responsibility for what he did, he only pretty much tried to he pretty much said that he stood by what he said, and he even said some awful things about former Los Angeles Laker and Hall of Famer, one of the greatest NBA players ever, Magic Johnson, and said that the only thing that he has nothing going on for him, only that he has HIV. Come on, that is a complete low blow. This is a man who, instead of taking responsibility for his actions, he just keeps justifying himself, but he eventually, reluctantly, relinquishes ownership to his estranged wife, Shelley Sterling, and she goes off and tries to find somebody to buy the team. And there have been a lot of folks who have wanted to buy the team. Oprah has wanted to buy the team. Magic Johnson has wanted to buy the team. Floyd Mayweather has wanted to buy the team. But former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer has wanted to buy the team for $2 billion. That's a lot. And then, Donald Sterling, that is, he decided, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and just take responsibility for my actions, take the money and run. Until a few days later. Now he's saying that he does not want to sell the team, and he wants to sue the NBA, all because even though he sells the team, he is still going to be banned from the NBA for life, which in this case isn't very long. He's pretty much knocking on heaven's door right now. But once again, Donald Sterling not taking responsibility for his actions. Which brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is something hardly no one wants to talk about, and that's self-responsibility. We have a lot of folks who make mistakes or do awful things, and they won't take responsibility for them. Instead, they'll just try to blame other people. Like, for example, Sterling, instead of saying, yeah, I said it, I said it, I shouldn't have said it, I'll sell the team. He says he'll say, no, I'm not selling the team and I'm going to sue the NBA. No, he shouldn't do that. We have folks walking around and they end up doing some awful things. They don't take responsibility for it. Or better yet, I mean, there are many ways you can not take responsibility for your actions. The one thing, the most common thing a lot of folks do when they don't take responsibility for their actions is that they don't own up to doing that. Or another common thing is they'll probably do something like try to get back at somebody, or stuff like that. And I mean, there are people now that will probably say stuff like, well, I did this because such and such did. No! You did this because that was the choice you made. See, that's the thing, people. We have choices. We have the choice. It's just like my mom always says, nobody can make you do anything you don't want to do but yourself. And we have folks walking around, they're holding grudges against people only because they don't want to take responsibility for things they do. And I think it's high time that a lot of us grow up too. I mean, I'll admit, I used to be guilty of it. I used to blame folks that I went to school with being socially awkward. When as I got older, I came to the realization that it was nobody's fault but mine, because I decided to be socially awkward. Just got to grow up, people. You got to start taking responsibility for your actions. You can't be blaming everybody for your shortcomings or the awful thing or some bad things you might do. There's no sense in it. All right, that's all I want to talk about. This week in DC versus Marvel, it's Green Arrow versus Hawkeye. Let's go.
Are you man enough, big and bad enough? Are you gonna let them shoot you down when the evil...
Welcome back to DC versus Marvel. This week it's Green Arrow versus Hawkeye. Green Arrow possesses the ability to shoot 29 arrows per minute. He has a wide variety of trick arrows ranging from bola arrows to time bomb arrows to his infamous boxing glove arrow. He is proficient in several forms of martial arts, including Judo, Wing Chun, Taekwondo, as well as Eskrima. Hawkeye is an exceptional fencer, acrobat, and marksman, having been trained from childhood in the circus by the criminals Trickshot and Swordsman. This includes considerable strength, as a supervillain found out when he tried to use the superhero's 250-pound sports draw weight bow and found that he could not draw back the string to launch an arrow. He's also well trained in tactics, martial arts, and hand-to-hand combat. He's also able to turn any object into a weapon, and has been seen using items such as tin plates, coins, sticks, and other debris to great effect against his enemies. Who would win? I'd say they start off with arrows, but that's stating the obvious. They go hand-to-hand combat after using up all their arrows. This would go on and on for minutes. Unbeknownst to Green Arrow, Hawkeye's been playing chicken at this point. He reveals a silver dollar and knocks out Green Arrow by flinging it at his head at full force. Hawkeye wins. That concludes this week's segment of DC versus Marvel. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of DC versus Marvel. I'll come up with another one next week. And as promised, I'm continuing the Comicology 101 series on Green Lantern, and this week I'll be talking about Guy Gardner. Class is now in session. Welcome back to the Comicology 101 Green Lantern series. This week I'll be discussing Guy Gardner. Guy was raised in Baltimore by his parents, Roland and Peggy Gardner. His father, Roland, was an abusive alcoholic who beat Guy every day. Some of Guy's injuries were visible, such as bruises, cuts, and bumps, but others were invisible and emotionally affected. Guy worked hard in school to try to win his father's approval, but Roland instead lavished attention and compliments upon Guy's older brother, Mace. Guy's only escape at this time was General Glory comic books, going so far as to model his bowl haircut on Glory's sidekick, Ernie. During his mid-teens, Guy became a juvenile delinquent. He constantly defied authority. Later, he was straightened out by his older brother Mace, now a police officer, and he eventually went to college, supporting himself and earning bachelor degrees in education and psychology from the University of Michigan, where he also played football until a career-ending injury. The injury deeply affected Guy. After college, Guy worked as a social welfare caseworker, dealing with prison inmates and their rehabilitation. He abandoned his line of work, however, fearing it brought out his aggressive nature. Moving on, he became a teacher for children with disabilities. This job brought on the loving and caring side of himself. The appointed Green Lantern of Space Sector 2814, an alien named Abin Sur from the planet Ungara, crash-landed on Earth after being mortally wounded. As Sur died, his power ring sought and fought two potential successors, Guy Gardner and Hal Jordan. Jordan was nearer to the crash, so he was chosen over Gardner. In the same story, the Guardian supercomputers predicted that Guy would have perished early in his career if he had been chosen first. Gardner was relegated to backup status should anything happen to Jordan. When Jordan became aware of Gardner's status as his backup, he went out of his way to set up a chance meeting, and the two became friends. Though Gardner was originally naive to Jordan's secret identity, he eventually assisted Jordan during his adventures. His later partner with Jordan after completing his training under Kilowog. During an earthquake, Gardner was hit by a bus while attempting to rescue one of his students. During his recovery, the Guardians recruited John Stewart to be Jordan's new backup. During the crisis on Infinite Earths, the Guardians of the Universe split into two factions over how to confront the crisis. A minority faction of 6 Guardians emulated their former brethren, the Controllers, by recruiting a Green Lantern to directly attack and destroy the forces of the antimatter universe. For reasons unknown, Gardner was revived by the Renegade Guardians, given a power ring not tied to the central power battery on Oa, and sporting a uniform similar to that worn by the Fist of the Guardians, and given a mission. He was to recruit and command the deadliest and most powerful criminals in the universe, including the Shark, Hector Hammond, left behind after trying to attack Gardner, Sonar, Throttle, Blindside, and Goldface to launch a strike against the home base of the Anti-Monitor. Gardner's brain damage manifested itself in the form of an arrogant, violent, unstable, and often childish new personality. Gardner believed himself to be the last true Green Lantern, superior to all the others, particularly Jordan. 5 of the Renegade Guardians were slain by a wave of antimatter, and the 6th eventually reconciled with the rest of the Guardians. In the meantime, Gardner succeeded in his task of recruiting powerful villains. Both Hal Jordan and John Stewart prevented Gardner from completing his mission, which would have ultimately destroyed the universe. Gardner became a founding member of the Justice League International after the original JLA disbanded during the DC Universe-wide crossover Legends. In his time with the JLI, Gardner resented Batman's leadership of the group, going so far as to challenge the Dark Knight to a fistfight. Batman immediately downed Guy with one punch. Guy's run in JLI was full of constant personality shifts and endless arguing between team members. This led to a fight with Lobo, the sucker punching a Blue Beetle during a boxing match, and finally quitting the team after being quote-unquote belittled by Superman. Gardner was romantically involved with his fellow leaguer Ice, even learning some rudimentary Norwegian. The relationship ended with her death at the hands of the Overmaster, but recent events have led to her resurrection. After completing his assignment of recruiting new Corps members, Jordan returned to Earth to reclaim his title as the Green Lantern of Sector 2814. Gardner's response was to challenge Jordan to a fight where the loser would quit the Corps. Gardner lost and surrendered his ring. Gardner's own comic series began with him using the yellow ring that once belonged to Sinestro, and a modified costume similar to his Green Lantern costume, but from street clothes. The yellow ring didn't use a battery to recharge, instead needing to be used against the power rings of Green Lantern so it could absorb their residual energy to restore its power, which Gardner discovered by accident when Kilowog fought him while his ring was powerless. Guy Gardner returned to Earth to pick a fight with Superman, but eventually rejoined the Justice League and helped battle the monster Doomsday, in which he and his teammates were brutally beaten and Superman was killed during the creature's defeat. During the reign of the Superman storyline, when 4 different versions of Superman appeared after his death, Guy fought and became allies and later endorsed the last son of Krypton, Superman, who is actually the Eradicator. Later, Guy cleared his name of murder that was committed by his clone and learned that his brother Mace had become the assassin militia. After a brawl between the two, Guy decided to take the codename Warrior. In the JLA classified-based miniseries I Can't Believe It's Not the Justice League, Guy assisted the Super Buddies and was revealed to have kept his yellow ring, although this story may not be canon, as it contradicts events shown in Green Lantern Rebirth. By this time, the power of Guy's ring had begun to fluctuate due to the meddling of the villain Parallax. Deprived of his powers, Guy wore a golden exosuit provided by Blue Beetle, which simulated superhuman strength. However, Guy wasn't happy with this initial suit as it didn't feel as natural as using ring power. The exosuit first appeared in issue number 18, the second issue to feature the new title Guy Gardner Warrior. Although the exosuit was destroyed during combat with Militia in issue 19, Guy's power ring surged and provided him with a new exosuit constructed of ring energy. This was much more to Guy's liking. When a grief-stricken and power-hungry Hal Jordan destroyed the Green Lantern Corps after the destruction of his hometown, Ganthet first came to Guy Gardner to offer him the last Green Lantern power ring. When Gardner refused, Ganthet decided to entrust it to Kyle Rayner. When Guy first emerged from having drunk the Warrior water in issue number 23, his body had assumed the shape of his old exosuit, albeit red instead of gold, and his lost eye had been restored. Guy's body remained that way until the end of the Zero Hour storyline, morphing weapons directly out of his arms as of Zero Hour issue number 2. Gardner opened a superhero-themed bar called Warriors, as both a source of income and a base between his adventures. He would be joined by Buck's group Verona, mightiest of the Naba jungle tribe of the women who guarded the Warrior water and believed her to be destined as Guy's mate, sharing limited telepathy with him. And those brought on as bouncers for Warriors, but acted as fellow adventurers, Lady Blackhawk, who was displaced in time by Zero Hour, Wildcat, Lead, and Aricia. His early days as Warrior saw him struggling with newfound powers. He had difficulty changing his body into any weapon, and his transformations often caused him pain. After a breakdown that led to a confrontation with Superman, with some soul-searching help from his supposed ancestor Cardone, Gardner was finally able to use his powers to form the most non-energy based weapons from his body, as well as absorb some forms of energy and redirect them through his various weapons. During the 2005 miniseries Green Lantern Rebirth, Gardner's Voldarian DNA is strangely overwritten by his human DNA when Parallax possesses Gardner and several Green Lanterns. Hal Jordan's ring splits in two, and Gardner's ring is restored to him. Eventually, Parallax is defeated by the combined effort of all 5 active Green Lanterns, including Gardner. The Guardians select Gardner as one of their senior officers of the new Green Lantern Corps. In the 2005-2006 miniseries Green Lantern Corps Recharge, the Guardians assign Gardner to be one of the Corps' 3 main instructors, along with Kilowog and Kyle Rayner. The two is responsible for the training of the new Corps, to which the Guardians intend to name 7,200 members. Gardner is not at all appreciative of his new role, and when he complains to the Guardians, they tell him that success in training new recruits could lead to him being given a new position. In the Blackest Night storyline, Guy and Kyle Rayner are opposed to the Guardians' decision to execute all Sinestro Corps members and all other prisoners and attempt unsuccessfully to convince the Alpha Lanterns and the Guardians themselves to stay away from the dark path on which they are headed and are reassigned to Earth. They later return to Oa and to fail to repel an invasion of a swarm of black rings to Owen's lantern crypt, where the corpses of fallen lanterns are reanimated as Black Lanterns. In the ensuing conflict, Guy is forced to crush the body of the insectoid Bizd, but is then impaled through the leg by Kahan. After Kyle is killed in the explosion of Chassalon's power battery, Guy flies into a rage and is transformed into a Red Lantern. Now powered by both his green and red power rings, Guy seeks vengeance against the Black Lanterns and is able to destroy them on sight effortlessly with his combined weapons. Despite Kyle's resurrection at the hands of the Star Sapphire, Guy turns his murderous rage on his former friends, before Mogo purges the Red Lantern rage from him, though he is told only a Blue Lantern can cure him completely. Then he joins the battle against Nekron on Earth. After the events of Blackest Night, Guy Gardner starred in the monthly series Green Lantern Emerald Warriors. While searching for a cure for his Red Lantern rage, it is revealed that Guy entered into an alliance with the Red Lantern leader Atrocitus, which briefly alienates Guy from other members of the Corps. In the War of the Green Lantern storyline, the influence of Parallax, now restored to the central power battery, forces Guy and the other Earth Lanterns to use the rings of the other Corps. Guy, citing his experience with the Red Lanterns, chooses the Red Power Ring. During their conflict with the Green Lantern Corps, Guy and his allies release Parallax from the central power battery, Guy using the Star Sapphire Ring in conjunction with the Red Lantern Ring, drawing on his love of the Corps, and his hatred and his anger to power both rings at once, the two emotional extremes proving sufficient to release Parallax from the battery, and Guy subsequently cleansed of the Green Lantern energy by Kyle Rayner's Blue Ring before each reclaims his usual ring. In DC's rebooted continuity, The New 52, Guy is now an ex-police officer and a middle child of a family with a long tradition of membership in the Baltimore Police Department going back to 1860. He is the second human to earn a Green Lantern ring after coming to the rescue of his older brother Gerald, who had become pinned down during a police shootout with the street gang. In this version, Guy has a strained relationship with his father Ebenezer Gardner, a decorated cop forced into disability after taking a bullet in the line of duty, for issues related to the unexplained incident which kicked Guy off the police force. Gardner, John Stewart, and the elite Green Lantern strike team star in a relaunched Green Lantern Corps series, which debuted in September 2011 as part of DC's The New 52 relaunch. Guy is shown on the cover of the new Justice League International series that was released that same month. Initially, Guy appeared to be the one Earth Lantern that the Guardians still appeared to rely on, with Hal having been expelled after War of the Green Lanterns, Kyle being expelled due to his alliance with the other ring wielders, and John put on trial for killing another Lantern. However, the Guardians were really planning to undermine all four Earth Lanterns by sabotaging Guy's career after building it up, ensuring a precipitous fall. This plan begins when the Guardians promote Guy to the role of Sentinel Lantern and entrust him with guarding a group of ambassadors traveling to a planet for a crucial conference. They subsequently release Guy's old enemy Zar from the science cells and create the impression that he is going after Guy's family on Earth. They predicted that Guy would abandon his duty and return to Earth, while Zar attacks the ambassadors. With the rest of his team having been absorbed by the Third Army, Guy escapes, only through his strength of will, averting the Third Army's attempt to recruit him. With Zar having killed the ambassadors, the Guardians order Guy to resign from the Corps in order to redeem the damage he has done. Feeling depressed after a phone conversation with his family, during which his father dismisses superheroes as overly reliant on their powers, Guy attempts to spend the night fighting crime with only his natural skills. This backfires when he interrupts a police sting operation, culminating in him being arrested by his sister. While in prison, he is attacked by the Third Army, but is rescued by Green Lantern Simon Baz and Badig, who send the civilians to safety before crushing the Third Army and retreating to the Sea of Tranquility on the moon. Guy is angered when he discovers that the Guardians have turned against him and the Corps. Simon and Badig dispatch him to the planet Oa. There, Guy reclaims his ring and joins Kilowog and the other Reserve Corps members in their rebellion against the treacherous Guardians. Following the events of Wrath of the First Lantern and Lights Out, Guy was placed on the cast of the Red Lantern series, where he was sent by Hal Jordan to join the Red Lanterns undercover and has defeated Atrocitus and taken command of the group since. And that concludes Comicology 101 on Guy Gardner. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of Comicology 101. Next week I'll be doing one on John Stewart. Alright, let's get to the comics I bought this week. Comic books I bought this week. First up is Green Lantern Corps number 31. This is part two of the Uprising story arc that's going on, and in part one, which is Green Lantern number 30, the Green Lantern Corps decided to take down the Darlings, and they succeeded, but only to find. But then later, in the last page of the book, we found out there's another threat that's coming forth. Up next is Green Lantern number 32. This is a bombshell cover that DC is doing all this month, and as you can see, that's Carol Ferris, who's also one of the Star Sapphires. And this is also part 3 of the Uprising story arc that's going on in the book. And then up next is Green Lantern Corps number 32. This is part 4 of the Uprising story arc in the book. Alright, up next is Original Sin number 2. This, in the first issue, in number 1, the one of the Watchers, the one named Uatu, dies, and as a matter of fact, not only does he die, he gets murdered. As to who did it, well, it hasn't been revealed. But one thing that has been revealed, or that's going to be revealed, is certain secrets that have spewed out, that have been held by certain characters in the Marvel universe. All right, up next is Superboy number 32. Now, in this book, this Superboy right here isn't the same Superboy in the that started when the series began in 2011, as I've stated before. This is actually Superman and Lois Lane's son from a parallel timeline, John Lane Kent, and he ends up coming to the 52 universe Earth, and he's friended by some members of Project Cadmus. And not only that, he also goes up against a bunch of parasites. It's not just one. It was multiples of them. All right. Up next is Superman Wonder Woman number 9. This is a continuation of the Superman Doom story arc that's crossing over in Superman, Wonder Woman, and Action Comics. It also crossed over in Superman number 31, which came out last month. But in the last chapter of it, Superman, of course, he gets as I've said before, he gets infected by Doomsday, and he becomes a Doomsday himself. And Steel, Dr. Ray Palmer, Lex Luthor, and others tried to find ways of ridding Superman of the virus that was infecting him. They even enlisted Metallo, who was actually locked up in a maximum security prison, because Metallo. One thing about him, somebody replaced his heart with a chunk of kryptonite, and they pretty much unleashed him against Superman in the hopes that they'd be able to get rid of the virus, help Superman get rid of the virus that's plaguing him. Unfortunately, instead, the kryptonite only weakened the Superman side of him, but the Doomsday side came out, and now he's a full-blown Doomsday. As to if he'll get rid of the Doomsday virus, I don't know, but I hope so. Up next is All New X-Men number 28. This is a continuing story arc in the last issue. The evil X-Men from the future come back to the present to try to kill the 5 original X-Men that came from the past to the present day Marvel Universe. And you probably noticed this figure back here. I can tell you it's not who you think it is. It may look like Professor X, but it isn't. It's actually Professor X's son. But I don't, to be honest, I don't know if that's Legion or not. And finally, a trade paperback that I bought from Books A Million. This is Guardians of the Galaxy, All New X-Men, The Trial of Jean Grey. This is a crossover story arc that just ended a few months ago. And I can tell you all the books that are in this trade paperback. They're Guardians of the Galaxy number 11, Guardians of the Galaxy number 12, Guardians of the Galaxy number 13, All New X-Men number 22, All New X-Men number 23, and All New X-Men number 24. Now, I'm not going to count All New X-Men number 24 because I already bought that a few months back. I'm only going to count the other ones. That's how I count comics. If they're in the form of a trade paperback, I count what books are in there, not the trade paperback itself. All right, that's 12 I bought, which brings the total number of comics that I bought since December of 1997 to 6,268. This trade paperback is awesome, y'all. It really is. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show. One thing I want to talk about in reference to this trade paperback is that it's also in it the Shi'ar Empire finds out that Jean Grey is on Earth. However, it's not the Jean Grey that was the Phoenix, but somehow they made her answer for her future self's actions as the Phoenix, and it's up to the rest of the X-Men and Guardians of the rest of the original X-Men and Guardians of the Galaxy to save her. So that's what that pretty much is. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show, and as promised, next week I'll have another segment of DC versus Marvel and the Green Lantern series that I'm doing, and next week's next week's edition is going to have John Stewart. All right, if you have any suggestions or anything, you know the drill. Let me know what you think, whether it's down below here on YouTube, or if you're any Facebook friends, then let me know after you watched. You can either let me know, in the comment. You can either comment on it, or you can go to the Comic Hero fan forum and find out and let me know there. Okay, that's all I have for this week. So I'm Victor Nunley. I'm the Comic Hero. We'll see you next week. Till then, be safe, be blessed, be a hero. One last thing. At the beginning of this episode, I said William Moulton Marston, the creator of Wonder Woman, invented the lie detector test. Is that statement true or false? Well, in a way, it's both. You see, Marsden is credited as the creator of the systolic blood pressure test, which later became a component of the modern polygraph, which was invented by John Augustus Larson. You see there? Comics aren't the only thing I talk about on the show. Thanks for watching.